Hi everyone, and welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast number 6. In this episode, we will be talking about the challenges of the 4th trimester and how we can support new parents during this incredibly exciting and exhausting time. Tonight, we will be interviewing a very special guest to us, my mom and Bree's mother-in-law, Lena Morissette. Lena holds a Bachelor's Degree in social work and is a registered social worker. Lena has worked in many different capacities supporting expectant and new parents over the last 20 plus years, including working at various different hospitals, covering the outpatient maternity clinics, inpatient labor and delivery, and postpartum. As well, she has worked in the neonatal intensive care unit for premature babies 32 weeks and over, assisting babies and their parents. She helps support many women dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety, miscarriage, stillbirth, domestic violence, substance abuse, difficult and traumatic births, and breastfeeding issues. She has most recently worked in adoption, assisting and supporting birth parents wanting to place their babies for adoption. She has always been there for me, and my pregnancies and postpartum were no exception. She was there as a labor support at both of my births, one in the hospital and one at home. She's the first person I call when I have a question or concern about my pregnancy or parenting, or if I just need to vent. We are so excited to have her here on our podcast, as we know she will be a fantastic resource for anyone going through the ups and downs and highs and lows of pregnancy and post-pregnancy. She has been a massive source of support for both of us through our pregnancies and postpartum, and we are excited to share her with all of you. Hi, Mom. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very honored that you wanted to have me on your podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome, Lena. I want to say welcome too.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're really excited to be talking about navigating the 4th trimester of pregnancy today. As you've heard, my mom has a ton of experience in this area, and we can't wait to draw on some of her experience to hopefully help out some of our listeners and followers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to be honest, it's been kind of cool through the polls, we've discovered that we actually, I was under the assumption that we had quite a few people that had already had children and were sort of on their way with that and it was done, but we have quite a few people who are pregnant and are going through the 4th trimester. So it was perfect timing.
Yeah. So, Mom, can you tell us a little bit about your history, your career history, and how you came to working with moms and babies and pregnancy and postpartum?
Sure, yeah. So it's funny, like many years ago, like just right after I had you, I had a really bad birth experience. And so at the time I wanted to do something different for my second child. And so I took a basic midwifery skills course to learn about midwifery. And I had a labor support person. And in those days there was a midwifery task force and midwives weren't legal in the hospitals. But so I did that, educated myself, I changed everything, and I had a long 36-hour labor with your brother, but it was a much more positive experience because I felt I was in control and I knew I'd done everything I could. And then I ended up with a C-section again, but, it was okay because I felt like I had made, the choices and I'd had the support that I needed. So that was kind of when that part started. And then I did some labor support in those days because I wanted to support other women. I thought about becoming a midwife, but it was a little tricky with 2 young kids and because you have to be up at night and all that. So that was kind of the beginning of my interest. And then I worked in the airlines for many years, and when I was 42, your aunt, my husband's sister, had a brain tumor, and I went to the cancer agency with her as a support person, and I saw what the social workers did there, and I thought, this is what I'd like to be doing rather than working with people who were complaining about not getting an aisle seat. I wanted people who really needed some help. Yeah. So
I remember you volunteering.
I volunteered
at the cancer agency.
Because you had to volunteer to get into social work school. So I volunteered as a therapeutic touch person. But I also volunteered at Canuck Place as well, which is a hospice for children. But before that, I had to get my 2 years at Langara, and I took an English course because I didn't know if I could write or not. Because I went through high school getting C's and didn't think I could, I don't know. I just didn't have a lot of confidence and didn't think I was that smart, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was. So I took an English course, got a B-, then I took women's studies, which was very supportive, and got an A-, and then I asked for leave of absence from my job, and they wouldn't give it to me, so I quit. And you were 13 and your brother was 9, and I went back to school full-time for 4 years, did the 2 years at Langara, and then I had to apply to social work school at UBC, and had to do the volunteer work then at that time. That was part of it. And then I got in, and I graduated when I was 46. And then after I graduated, my goal was always to work with families, parents and kids, and because that was just my passion, because I just felt like, kids are innocent victims of so many things, and I wanted to help children, and that was where my goals were. So it was a struggle at the time to get jobs because there was cutbacks and things like that. But so I worked in the hospital and did. I started working at one hospital, and that hospital I worked in maternity, and of course I loved that. And worked there for a bit, and with a maternity clinic with women who are pregnant and women having babies. And then that job ended because of cutbacks, and then I went to another hospital, and so a couple of little different hospitals. I did that, and then I worked in the hospital in other areas with oncology, seniors, things like that. And then eventually I ended up working at a hospital for the last 7 years before I retired in maternity, postpartum, labor and delivery, the neonatal intensive care unit, and the maternity clinic. And that's where I really spent a lot of time with mums and babies, and what they were going through in their pregnancy and what they were going through after they delivered their babies. And then since then, I've still done contract work in adoptions where I work with mums who were considering placing their babies for adoption. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Wow. Good job. That's a lot in a nutshell. I won't say how
old I am now, but yeah, I did a lot.
That's amazing.
Time. I love the work, and I just, it's just
such it must be such unbelievably rewarding work. I can imagine.
It is.
I mean, we've talked so much about how it can be so straining on your own mental health and how challenging it is to just leave things behind.
Yeah, it is hard because everything that you deal with as a social worker is problems, and so it's hard, and it's just heartbreaking what you see people that they have to deal with and what they go through. But if you can try to help them, get through that and come out the other side, or connect them to things that are going to help them, then that's the rewarding part, But yeah, it is hard for sure, and you have to do things to take care of yourself, during that time. Luckily, I have a very amazing husband, your father, and your father-in-law, and and you guys, and and I tap dance, so that helps, get it all out there, just shake it off. But it is very rewarding for sure, because at those moments, they might not have had anyone else to go through that difficult time, and so.
I remember when I was pregnant with my first baby 8 years ago, you were working in maternity, and it was really hard for you because there was a lot of things happening at work that would make you think about what was happening with me, or things that would happen with moms and babies around the same time where I was, and I remember that was really hard for you.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you because I just didn't want you to worry about things, but it was really hard, and it was amazing how things would happen at the same gestational time as you were pregnant.
Yeah.
Whether it was miscarriages or stillbirth or really hard things for people. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
but I also just remember when I came home from the hospital and had this new baby and was in complete and utter shock about what to do, and I felt extremely trapped and alone. I was so grateful to have you to bounce ideas off of and to help me through it and to tell me that I wasn't crazy and that this was normal. And I'm glad. And that's the thing is, I think it needs to be normalized that what women go through, because everyone, society, oh, you're having a baby, isn't that wonderful? And you have this baby, and you're supposed to be so happy, and you're miserable, and you're crying, and you're not sleeping, and you're hurting, and it's been really hard, and you don't always want to share that with people, and it can be really hard, so that's where you need to have support and help and someone to talk to, because even and they think, just because you're a woman you know exactly what to do. Well, you don't know what to do, not any more than a man does. It's not really instinctual. There's a lot you need to learn,
and navigate, and it is it's a really challenging time. Although you are happy and you're in love with this baby, but there's still so many other things that are going on at the same time.
It's such a huge adjustment, especially with your first.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah. And this is the thing, is that when we put one of the polls out, what were your feelings when you brought your child home, or when you finally had a child placed in your arms?
Yeah.
Whether it was home birth or hospital birth or however you chose. A lot of people felt this extreme shock of how it ended up being, and it wasn't what they expected.
And you've got this 24/7, you're responsible for this baby.
Yeah.
And it's wanting to eat from you all the time, every 2-3 hours, and you're not sleeping. And there's a lot of stuff going on, which is really, really hard.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through a little bit of the process of when you are working with somebody who is struggling or has come to you for help?
Yeah, so like in the hospital, the nurses would, they'd be the first contact with the mom, and so they would be talking to them and doing their assessments and things, or do their teachings, and then they would pick up on something that they thought was, like either the mom was feeling depressed, or maybe there was drug and alcohol use in the background, or maybe there was domestic violence, or poverty, or new immigrants, or they're a refugee and they're all by themselves, and so then they'd refer to me, and then I would go and see the mom and talk to them and try to find out like kind of what's going on and what their needs are, and kind of assess the situation. And a lot of the time, though, it was just kind of listening to them and giving them an opportunity to talk about how they're feeling, because often in some cultures, like there isn't the same support that there might be in others, or they might be a single parent, or the spouse might, or the partner might not be supportive,
on board,
and there's so many things like that, right? So it's trying to kind of figure out what's going on. So it's just assessing what that mom might need at that time, and validating how she's feeling. Validation is so important, because it's okay to feel sad. It's okay not to feel really happy. It's okay to feel exhausted. It's okay to, feel like, how am I going to do? Like, to be scared when you go home with this baby. Like, how am I going to manage? Like, how am I going to take care of it? Like, all those feelings are really normal, and then it's try to connect them and with the right supports that can help them feel more confident and feel better when they do go home. So that's kind of a big part of what I did in the hospital.
Right. And I think it's important to note that I think a lot of our listeners may not be to that level of extreme where they need to be passed on to a social worker. But some of the tools that you have provided for these patients are extremely helpful for just any mom who's just going through this postpartum kind of situation and what they're feeling. I mean, I know I wasn't at the point where I needed to be working with a social worker, but I had many, many moments where I was like, what is going on? What are these overwhelming feelings that I'm having? And how helpful it was for you to say, like, this is totally normal. You're not weird. You're not, you're not crazy. You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would just, if a nurse noticed that a mom was crying a lot or something, then I just go and check in with her and see how she's doing. And, because again, you need, that's what you're assessing for too, is like, is there, baby blues, postpartum depression coming, or what's happening? What supports does she have when she goes home? Like what's, and especially if someone has a C-section, you need a lot more support, because you can't do everything that, that someone can do with a vaginal birth, because you've got to recover from the surgery as well, and some families might not know about that, and it's talking to them about how they can ask for the help that they need, and and getting supports in the community that they might need, and sharing resources with them, and encouraging them to talk to their partners about how they feel, after the birth, because a lot of the time the partners is like, oh yeah, this is awesome, you know, but like they don't know what physically and emotionally, and the hormones are doing backflips.
I mean, I think both of our partners said that to us. I know Stefan right away was like, that was amazing, let's do it again. And I'm like, I've had this baby plunked into my arms and I'm going, you've got to be kidding me.
You feel like you've been completely beat up.
I've been like ripped apart. I feel like my body's going to explode.
Exactly.
I'm covered in like sweat and like you name it. And you were, the first thing you say to me is, that was amazing, let's do it again. You know? And
I'm pretty sure my partner said exactly the same thing.
And they have no idea what you're feeling, what you've been through, you know, physically and emotionally. And like I talk about the hormones, and like that's the thing I always talk to women about, like the first couple of days, like your hormones are doing backflips. They're just actually surging and doing all these crazy things in your body and making you feel all these things, and you're crying and you don't know why, and then you're happy and you don't know why, and you're exhausted, and you know, like, because they're all adjusting, all those hormones are kind of settling back in, and that can take time for that to get back to whatever normal is. But you know that and that needs to be acknowledged and supported, you know.
Well, I think that's why there is a big conversation now about the fourth trimester. And then there's a lot of people talking about it and writing books about it, and because in the past there hasn't been enough support for women, and it is really truly like the fourth trimester of pregnancy. Like it's such a new time, and you're still adjusting and your body is still healing, like you're not back to normal.
No, and I think it's actually kind of nice that it's being acknowledged as another trimester, because like essentially you are still, I don't know, with baby, with child. You are just like figuring it out.
A lot of women feel this really sadness because they're not feeling the kicking anymore. There's a lot of loss.
I went through that. I remember being sad that I didn't have this
I've heard
motion inside my belly. It was all of a sudden, it was outside of me. It was like a loss. And I still go through that every now and then.
No, I've heard women say that many times. For sure.
That's really interesting.
Because you feel so connected to your baby, and like your baby goes with you everywhere. And then all of a sudden, this baby now is outside of you.
Yeah, I remember someone saying to me, like, oh, you just have to make it to day 100 with my first baby. And I was like, okay.
I heard that too.
Day 100, I can do it. Like, it was like this thing in my mind. And like when I got to day 100, things were going to look brighter and look better. And it did. And because that is sort of the end of the fourth trimester, right? It's coming out of that, because your uterus is contracted and everything's healed, and hopefully you've sort of figured out some kind of feeding strategy that works for you, and you're hopefully getting a bit of sleep and feeling a little bit more normal. But it really takes that time. Like, I remember coming home with my first baby. It was October, it was raining, I was in pain from trying to breastfeed and in pain with everything, and I remember feeling so incredibly trapped. Like, I would just sit there for like hours and hours while he tried to breastfeed and watch the raindrops drip down the window of my apartment. And I remember my mom saying, like, to my partner, like, you have to get her to talk about it, and you would always come over and try and get me to talk about how I was feeling, and it was hard to talk about. And even though I kind of knew what you were doing, it was good that you did it, because I was like stubborn at first and like in my head, and like I don't know how to vocalize how I'm feeling, but the more you made me talk about it, the better it made me feel. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It's so important to talk about it and to reach out to someone and let someone know how you're feeling. That's one of the key things to prevent like postpartum depression from setting in. Just ask for help, talk about how you're feeling. Don't feel guilty, don't feel bad about it. It's normal. It's, your feelings need to be validated. You've been through a lot, and and this is a whole new life for you, and you're dealing with so many things every hour of every day, like trying to feed your baby, and some people struggle with breastfeeding, and then that was me. That's another challenge, right?
I really struggled.
So you're dealing with that as well, and if the baby's not latching, or like there's so many things that can be going on. So and if you just have in your head like, oh, I have to be this perfect mom and I have to do all this right, and like that's not healthy. You need to be exactly saying how you're feeling, and ask your partner for that help. Like they usually are there for you to support you, but they don't know what to do unless you tell them, because they can't guess. They don't know what's going on for you, right?
Yeah, and we talk so much about like building your village, and then it takes a village to raise a child, and I think during this time especially, like it's so important to reach out to people and ask for help. And if you're someone who have a friend who's having a baby, I think someone told me they're like, make sure when you go, you don't stay longer than half an hour. You clean up something while you're there, and you bring food.
It was your dad that told me that. Well, he heard that from someone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That you bring something when you come. Like some kind of food. You do something while you're there. Hold the baby. Do a load of laundry. Cook a meal, and then you take something with you, like take the garbage out or something else. Yeah.
So
and that's
great.
a way other people can help. Like families can help. I mean, some of your listeners, they might be isolated. They might not have any family. They might not have any friends. They might live in a new place, and that's really hard. You know.
And so let's talk to those people. What can those people do who feel like they don't have much of a support system?
Yeah, I mean, I know here there's a lot of supports through community centers, the public health unit. Like here, you always get a public health call or visit. They have mom and baby groups through the local health unit. You know, I mean, even I guess your doctor. But if you just Google in your area, like, you know, what are mom and baby groups or what are family, you know, there usually, I think, is something there for new moms that you can find, you know. And whenever I would see moms, I'd always give them a list of different things in their area, you know, where they could connect to other people. Even here in Vancouver, we have, which I'm going to be starting to do, it's called the Cuddle Program. And it's a volunteer, and it's where, I don't know if I've told you guys this.
Yeah, you told me this.
But,
I haven't heard.
Yeah. Because it's for women who are at risk for postpartum depression. So someone comes into your home once a week, and they either hold the baby while you have a shower, or they go with you to a doctor's appointment, or they go shopping with you.
That's
just
amazing.
Someone there, like for people that don't have you know, family around or someone around, right? So there usually is something that you can find in the community. So just go on the computer, Google it, and dig around, or ask your doctor or your public health nurse, and there should be something there that can help you, because it's definitely really hard if you don't have any family.
And is that a volunteer program?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you...
You have to be assessed by the public health nurse here in Vancouver if they feel that you're at risk for postpartum depression.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you are, then they'll connect you with a volunteer that will come once a
That's
week.
amazing, because I always thought, actually my mom and I always talked about how, you know, my mom being at an age where she's ready to retire and loves children and
she'd be great
has worked
at that.
with children.
I'll tell her about it, yeah.
Yeah, well, and she's always said, wouldn't it be amazing, I swear she's talked to you about this too, but wouldn't it be amazing if there was a program that retired grandmothers?
Well, I think there's there is like a granny, like it's the granny program or something like that. There's also at the hospital, at the Nicu, you can also be a volunteer, like you can cuddle there, but I think there's a wait list to get into that.
Yes, of course.
But this was a bit of wait list too, but it's so there is stuff like that for sure, and you can reach out to that. So usually it's your public health nurse that would help connect you to that wherever you are in the world, I think.
Yeah, and I think making those like face-to-face connections, like the online world is so amazing, and I know I get so much from podcasts and so much from the online community. But taking it that one step further, and then like meeting up with people face to face and finding those opportunities to have those connections. I used to do a Mother Goose program. Yeah, that was a great program. It was funded, so it wasn't very expensive at all. And
the Fit for Two thing, you did that with exercise. You did the baby. Yeah,
that was a mom baby fitness program.
And there's something called meetups here. You can go online and do meetups.
Yeah. And I know there's a bunch of like different mummy programs that have an online community, but they also have meet face to face.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, meeting face to face is a lot better. Yeah, and then you get to know someone. Then you go for coffee, or you go for a walk somewhere, and it makes it a lot nicer.
Totally.
You get out of the house too.
Yeah, I was so fortunate with my first pregnancy to have one of my best friends off on maternity leave, and then with my second pregnancy to have Bree off on maternity leave together. That was amazing.
Yeah. If you can have, if you're super lucky if you can have somebody that you're able to go through it with.
Yeah, because nobody knows how you're feeling except someone else who's going through the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So. Mom, when you talk about just thinking about postpartum depression, are you able to talk a little bit about like how you know if it's the baby blues or if it's postpartum depression, because I know I always worried about that. I was like, oh my gosh, is this more serious? Is it going to get worse? Am I going to get out of this out from under this dark cloud, or you know, is it just am I gonna get out from it, or is it gonna get worse?
And for me, it's interesting because I think we had different experiences. We've had different experiences, like too, with breastfeeding as well. That's always been something that's supernatural to you, and I struggled with it. But I don't feel like I necessarily had the baby blues. I really struggled with anxiety. That was my thing. Like, I don't remember, and maybe the anxiety brought on some feelings of feeling down, but I don't feel like I ever got to a point where I was just like under this dark cloud and like everything was dark and gloomy. It was just more, my anxiety levels were just spiked to the max.
Yeah. Well, when someone has depression or anxiety before they have a baby, they're really high risk for it happening after they have a baby.
Yes.
And so when we would see someone prenatally and they were they were suffering from that, then we would connect them to the reproductive mental health program here in Vancouver and make sure they were well supported for when the baby came, because they were high risk for it happening after. So you do have a lot higher risk if you're suffering from it beforehand. And anxiety, depression, they're different, but they're connected.
Yes.
Somehow too, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of, a lot kind of similar, but so baby blues versus postpartum depression. The symptoms are very similar. It's just with postpartum depression they last longer, and I pulled up a little bit of information about here, and it includes mood swings, a lot of crying, sadness, insomnia, and irritability. The difference is that with postpartum, again, they're much more severe, like suicidal thoughts, and the inability to care for your newborn. If you start to not have interest in the newborn, you don't want to get up in the morning, you don't really care about your baby, that's definitely a sign of postpartum. You might find yourself withdrawing from your partner, being able to bond with your baby. You might find your anxiety out of control, preventing you from sleeping even when your baby is asleep, or eating appropriately. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I just remember everyone in my house was sleeping, and I would be wide awake.
Yeah.
Staring at the baby.
Staring at the baby, staring at the ceiling, going, the baby's going to wake up in 1 hour.
I have to sleep.
If I don't sleep, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
It was awful.
It's an awful feeling.
So hard, yeah.
And that's where it's so important to let someone know how you're feeling and ask for help.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing to do for sure. And you did that. You did. You might find feelings of guilt or worthlessness overwhelming, or begin to develop thoughts of preoccupied with death, or even wish you were not alive. So those are really serious for postpartum depression. There is a perinatal depression scale that nurses use or social workers use. It's just 10 questions to kind of see where you're at. And if you have a certain score, then you're high risk, and then you definitely need to get some help. So again, I don't know if you want me to talk about that now, or you can post it. You can put it on, and you can tell where you can get it. Like we'll give you the website where you can.
Yeah,
I think midwives gave that to me.
I think it's part of your regular routine.
They usually check on you.
And so we can provide that checklist for sure.
Yeah. So the main things to do. There's lots of different causes and risk factors. Again, history of it, and 50% higher risk of depression if you don't get enough sleep. And I know it's hard because you've got a new baby and you're feeding every 3 hours. So how do you get that sleep, right? It's such an important part. So one thing that I would suggest sometimes to moms is like, okay, if you can, pump the milk and let your partner take one of the feedings through the night, so you get a bit of a stretch of a sleep if you're having trouble sleeping. Have someone come in during the day, whether it's a family member or a friend or something, take the baby for a walk so you can have a sleep. Like, just try to find some strategies.
Whatever you can do
to get that sleep.
Grandma out there. You would come and take the baby for a walk. So I would literally go to bed. I remember you'd come over and take the baby you'd be gone for a couple hours, I think.
And it's more important than cleaning, cooking, shopping, any of that stuff. You don't do any of that stuff for the first 3 months. Let your partner take over. And your family, whatever. Don't even think about it. It's just you and the baby. You're there to take care of the baby and feed the baby and take care of yourself. That's the priority. All the rest of the stuff, like somebody else. And I know that's hard in a lot of relationships because maybe that's not the norm and that's not the way they used to, but it's just, maybe if you can afford to hire someone to come in and help with that or whatever you can do, right? Just it's just short term. It's only for a few months, right? And then once you get into a routine, it'll be okay. But it's just so important to get that sleep. So I'm going to talk about the nests now. It's NESTS. So these are the things. It's very simple to look at and what I would hand out to everybody that I would see. So N stands for nutrition. How often do you sit down and feed your baby and you're not eating or drinking, right? Like, so when you go to sit down to feed your baby, make sure you've got a glass of water and maybe just a snack, some yogurt, some crackers, anything, because I know it's hard. You forget to feed yourself. Try to be as healthy as you can and get your nutrition because your body still needs nutrition, right? Like you're feeding this baby, you need to feed yourself too.
Especially if you have another child.
Yes.
That you're also worried about feeding and taking care of. Like
So nutrition, and we don't think about that because
moms
are always last. You're always last. Like everybody else gets.
You're like, I'll have some crackers, some cheese,
but
I'll eat the leftovers.
Leftover Annie's mac and cheese.
Well, it's better than nothing, I guess. But I look at like the pitcher. You're pouring the water into the pitcher. If you don't fill it up again, you can't do anything. You need to fill yourself up, with nutrition somehow. And whether it's takeout or whether and if families bring food, that's great. And if you could do it before the baby comes, prep some meals to put in the freezer. If you don't have family around or things like that. Excuse me, because nutrition is so important. E is for exercise, and you think, oh, how am I going to exercise when I've got a new baby? Well, even if you go for a walk around the block, that's good enough. Just to get out of the house, go for a short walk. I'm not telling go to the gym for an hour. You don't need to do that. But just get out of the house, walk around the block, get the fresh air. Just getting outside will make a big difference. We're just talking in the fourth trimester right now, right? And then the S is sleep. So again, I talked about that. Try to get sleep because you're waking up every 3 hours through the night. So try to nap when you can, as much as you can.
I really think we need to place a serious emphasis on sleep.
Absolutely.
Because sleep is probably the number one thing that will drive you crazy if you do not
you can't
get
function.
enough
You
of
can't
it.
think straight if you're
You can't
so
think
exhausted.
straight. You cannot function.
You can't talk.
You can't parent your other children properly.
No. You need to do whatever you can to get sleep. And whether that means you have to sleep through the day when your husband is home on a Saturday, it doesn't matter. Whatever you can do to get sleep. Whether he gets up in the morning, you need to put your husband in charge. And I remember this. I remember I remember especially with my first, it was like, what are you talking about? I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I was on this high for the first 3 months. And then it was like, boom, I crashed. And it just took my husband going, no, okay, now I'm going to get up in the morning and you better, if I'm getting up at 5 a.m., you better go back to sleep. We had that conversation and he put the smack down on me and was like, no, you get back into, because I had this, I need to get up with the kids. I need to do it all. And it was I was literally losing my mind. And anyways, it was
I think that's such a common feeling, like I talked about before. It's like we were women, this is expected of us, we're supposed to be able to do all this. So again, the most important thing is to ask for help. Say how you're feeling and ask for the help that you need from whoever you can, whether it's a friend or your spouse or your partner or your next door neighbor or your family member. Just try to ask for help and be okay with it. I know you often feel guilty and you should be able to do this.
Want to be a burden,
but if you don't do that, it gets so much worse, right? It's just
and people want to help. I actually find people feel quite honored when you call on them and say, could you take my baby for a walk for an hour, just so I can unload the dishwasher or get sleep.
Get sleep.
That's unloading the dishwasher is the last of your concerns when you're not sleeping. So
we've got nutrition, exercise, sleep. T, time for yourself. Now, I know that again sounds impossible, but even if you can do 15 minutes in a day where you just sit and have a cup of tea, read a book, watch your favorite show, have a bubble bath, just try to find some moment in the day where you can just a little bit where it's you, go for a walk on your own. I remember when you were 8 weeks old, I'll never forget, like I hadn't left you yet.
Yeah.
And, Dad's going, oh, you got it. So I went to an exercise class at 8 weeks, and I was just like freaking out because you were only breastfeeding. So like I was on the clock, right? But I remember that was a really big deal to get out of the house and go to this exercise class when you were 8 weeks old. It's funny that I have that memory, and it was hard because again, you feel like I have to be there all the time, but it's okay to take an hour or, half an hour or whatever. Time for self. So important because you reap the rewards, so much over again, like 1,000 times over. So it's important.
I'm so big on my nighttime baths. I'm like, locking is literally the only door in our entire house that locks.
Yeah.
So I lock the bathroom door. Yeah. And I currently, being 6 months pregnant, take my ice cream in there with me. And
perfect.
If I'm not pregnant, I take my cup of tea or glass of wine and I lock the door, have a bubble bath, turn the lights off, light a candle, and just have like 15 minutes of quiet to myself.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And, if you feel it's overwhelming, how am I going to find this? Just start with 15 minutes and then build on that.
And I think sometimes you think, oh, I don't need that. Or I think that's going to be my mentality sometimes is like, I don't have time. I just like I can get into this mentality of like, well, I'd rather be on Instagram or or I'd rather be, but then when you do it, you're like, wow, I actually really did need that.
Yeah. You'll feel how good it feels.
Yeah.
And all of us have stuff from our childhood and our backgrounds of like, and society, we're so conditioned, like, oh, we should be like this, take should out of your language and just say, this is what I need to do, this is what I want to do, and just, be okay with it. Because you'll be so much a better person, a better mother, feel better about yourself, a better wife, a better partner, if you take care of yourself.
I think that's exactly it, is you can't be good for anyone else until you take care of yourself.
Absolutely not.
It's like, I was listening to Tony Robbins today, and he was talking about how when you're on the airplane, what do they tell you to do? They tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and put it on your children. Exactly. Because if you're not surviving, your children aren't surviving.
Great analogy, absolutely.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. And then supports is the last one. S is for support. So finding what supports you can. If you don't, if it's family, partners, the community, community centers, family place. We have things called family place here. Even get meal delivery or get, just for a short time or, get a babysitter in or I don't know, just find whatever support you can. Again, we're just looking short term. It's not long term, right? Just to get you through those first few months until you get on your feet and you get into kind of a bit of a schedule, hopefully. Like that usually changes once you get a schedule, then it switches, but at least you've recovered and you feel a bit stronger. So support. So nutrition, exercise, sleep, time for self, and supports.
Nests.
Go through that every day.
Acronym
I'm getting
nests.
Those 5 things for myself every day to help me be the best person, mom I can be for myself, and my family, and my child.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
Super tangible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that word.
Love it. Very tangible.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I think those are some really great tips and really important things to remember for moms that are either on their first, second, or third baby, like even thinking about this right now.
Because if you have other children, right, then it's even more of a challenge, but you still need to look at those things, right?
And remember it and always keep it in the back of your mind and share it with your partner as well and come up with a plan or with your support network if you're a single parent.
Like, again, they don't know. You need to share with them. You need to tell them because they want to be there to help. They usually do, most of the time. But they don't know what to do. They're kind of at a loss, like, how can I help? You need to tell them and talk to them about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your expertise with us. I know you have such a huge breadth of knowledge. We could go on and on about lots of different things, but it's a good start.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be able to share the things that I've learned and see that work and It's nice of you to have me.
So we'll provide the links for Lena has a couple great websites that moms can go to
Yeah, and if it doesn't happen to be the ones in your neighborhood, I would just Google, like perinatal services or postpartum depression or, anything to do with, that, and then maybe it'll come up in your area, because I know some of you are in different countries, and I'm not sure what there is there, but
Yeah, and if anyone has any great resources,
sure.
send us an email or DM us on Instagram, because then we can share it with the community, because I think the more we can share different resources, the better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if anybody has questions for me, they'll post my email as well, and I'm happy to talk to any of you if you have any more questions.
Fantastic. That's really nice of you. And put that acronym NEST on sticky notes everywhere if you're pregnant or in the fourth trimester, because
we
those
used to
are
hand
such
out
great.
the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like a calendar where you would write down everything. So you can do that for yourself as well too, if you want to check off, like, okay, what have I done these 5 things today for myself, right?
I love that.
Nice.
Yeah. Great.
Amazing.
You deserve it.
Thank you. We love you.
Lena.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, you guys. Love you too.
Thank you so much for listening today. We hope that this episode was helpful if you're someone who is pregnant and about to have a baby or is currently going through the 4th trimester. It's so important to know how to take care of yourself, because the 4th trimester can be one of the most challenging times. And we want you to know you're absolutely not alone. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to have feelings of anxiety. The most important thing to remember is that you need to sleep as much as you can. Reach out to people who you think will help you or be there for you. And don't forget about that acronym NEST. It's really important. Now is the time to take care of yourself. Please feel free to reach out to us through our email or on our DMs on our Instagram page. We'll also be providing Lena's email in our podcast link and on the Instagram page as well. Once again, thank you so much for listening to our show. If you like what we have to say and you want to hear more of what's coming on the Mindful Mummies podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next show. Have a good day, everyone.